Good morning. We're getting ready to start. Whew. I just love the way you guys come to order. You are the most professional group of people that I have worked with in a long time. And I go to many conferences, and people don't come in for the session. They're partying on the outside. You guys are committed, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Just want to give you a few housekeeping things before we get started. And just to let you know, this plenary, Doris is going to run this plenary, but you can be from the marriage side of the grants, or you can be from the fatherhood side. Feel free to go to either plenary. There's one in this room, and there's one in Salon 2. This plenary is for grantees and participants from the marriage program. Next door will be participants from the fatherhood program. So whatever room you decide to be in is fine. Just wanted to mention the National Healthy Marriage Resource Center is doing usability questions, and so they need you to stop by the exhibit tables. Fatherhood, the National Resource Center, National Fatherhood Clearinghouse is also doing usability surveys, and if you could stop by the exhibit rooms and just go through the questionnaires for them, what they're trying to do is figure out what things they can do to enhance and make those presentations and the material that they offer more suitable to what you need out there in the field. So take a moment to get through the exhibits when you can, in between your breaks and things to help them out a little bit in the exhibit room. The other thing is the cluster meetings start this afternoon from 2:15 to 4:45. Just want to remind you, grantees on the marriage side that are part of priority area 1, 2, and 3, 2 and 3, you've been being worked with a lot of FPOs over the time, and I do apologize for that, but I have the same turnover issues that you do in your own programs. But you will meet in the cluster meetings with Michelle Walters. So all priority 1, 2, and 3 grantees should meet with Michelle. Priority area 8 will have Dorisa as your FPO. Those who work with Dorisa, you will meet with her. Those grantees that were, your FPO was Nathaniel Johnson, will now meet with Keon Smith and myself at 2:15, and I will be happy to introduce you to your new federal project officer at that time. And so with no further ado, I'm going to ask Dorisa to come up, and we have one participant who's on his way, but we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll just join him in and have him come to the front when he gets here. And so have a great day and see you guys later. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Healthy Marriage Panel, the benefits of healthy relationships and premarital education. Yesterday, we heard from some great participants, didn't we? And again, today, we will as well. The work we do, after hearing from the participants, it will reaffirm why we do the work that we do in social services. So without further delay, I'm going to first introduce the first grantee, who will in turn introduce the participants that receive services from her organization. Pauline Hamlet from Best Friends Foundation is the National and Metropolitan Director of Programs. Pauline, can you come to the front and tell the group a little bit about your program, and then in turn introduce your participants, and then we will go from there. Pauline, there's the wireless mic.
Good morning. Well, because I'm an educator, I think I can ask you to do that a little bit better. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. I want to talk a little bit about the Best Friends Foundation, but first I would like to say to you that I always introduce the foundation by saying that I'm the oldest Best Friends girl. And I would like to say to you that the Best Friends Foundation has been in the business of improving the quality of life for boys and girls since 1987 under the direction of Elaine Bennett. We started out in 1987 with just girls, but we always got the question, what about the boys? What about the boys? And in 2000, we started Best Men. And that was an excitement. Excitement because people felt that boys could not buy into the message. They were not interested. And guess what? We've proven them all wrong, because the boys bought into the program, and they're just as excited, and in some cases more excited than the girls. Now, that was excitement. But when we received this grant, where we would be able to work with high school students, we got more excited because DCPS opened up its doors, and we have one high school that we work with in-house, McKinley Tech. And on Saturdays, we run Saturday programs where we pick up students from all high schools in the city and some schools in Maryland. And what you're going to see today are the results of what we've talked about in these wonderful curriculum sessions relative to healthy relationships. This is very important. Healthy relationships, very important, because as we moved about the high schools, we realized that that was a problem. Explaining to boys and girls, what would you consider as a healthy relationship? We have the data to prove that it works, and we are excited about this grant. You know that with the metro system in DC, we have a problem. So our young man who is to sit on the panel today is on metro, but he's on his way. But I have two wonderful young ladies here that they said, please introduce them, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about what Best Friends and the Healthy Relationship Curriculum means to them. I'll start off with Jamila.
Okay. Hello, good morning. Hi, I'm Jamila Lee. I attended Duke Ellington School of the Arts. I'm a graduate of 2009. I'm going into Temple University, hopefully double majoring in dance and French. I've been a participant of Best Friends organization since 6th grade, and that was at Amadon Elementary School where Ms. Hamlet was my principal. And to me, the healthy relationship curriculum that the Best Friends provides, it definitely, I believe, promotes the emotional and the mental and also the physical aspect of the participants in the program, and it's looking out for our well-being. And being in this program has allowed me to see, especially in high school, how unhealthy relationships can lead to insecurity and just personal issues. So I'm very happy to have been a participant of Best Friends, and I wish to continue to be on the Best Friends College Committee.
Well, good morning too. My name is Brianna Wilson. I just currently graduated from McKinley Technology High School. I'll be attending Trinity Washington, located here in DC, and I'll be my major would be biochemistry. Well, basically, Jamila said everything that was going through my mind, so I have nothing else to say.
Questions for you, and Brianna, I think you missed the point of letting them know how long you've been a part of the program, so would you do that?
I've been in the program since 9th grade, 4 years.
Okay. Now that you're going off to college, Brianna, can you just tell me two things that you feel as a result of going to the healthy relationship curriculum that you feel that you would take into college with you?
Well, yes, indeed, because, you know, when you go into college, there's different atmospheres, new peoples, different things. You have challenges and you have temptation. Because you're new, you're a freshman, so, you know, guys going to pick on you because you're like the fresh meat in their whole little group. So during the curriculum at Best Friends taught me that I have to watch out and stay focused on my academics first and then go into a relationship, because you can also lose focus on why you're in college. Because my mom was telling me, like, one of her best friend's daughters, she lost the focus in college because she was always at her boyfriend's house, and that she wasn't going to class and her parents didn't know. So being in the program helped me to realize that I have to set my goals and finish them.
Thank you. Jamila, could you add to that?
Of course. I actually just came from my orientation yesterday, so I saw a lot of that. I wanted to say that with the program, definitely for personal reasons, it taught me not to be dishonest and to basically fulfill my dreams and not compromise my goals. Like how she said, set your goals and finish them. best friends has always taught us to do that, especially in high school. So I'm definitely feeling prepared for college. And one major thing they always preach is sex is not a test of love. So going into college, especially at my orientation, they were definitely. I looked around and looked at the girls and how they dressed, and actually I wasn't surprised because one of my best friend's mentors, Miss Rita Burns, said when you go to college, those girls, the way they dress, is going to attract the men. And while I was there were football players, so they were wearing short shorts and skirts, and I'm sitting there in my sweatpants like, are you serious? And then when you speak to the girls, they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a business major and I'm gonna do this and this with my life. I'm like, how can you be focused if the boys are all focusing on you and you're focusing on the boys? So where is your attention gonna be when you start the actual school year? So basically with best friends and the healthy relationship curriculum, I've learned that also that, yes, my schoolwork is definitely more important than any boy. So that's it.
All right, I know that both of you attended two different high schools. Jamila, you attended the High School of the Arts, and Brianna, you went to the Technology High School. Did you have the opportunity to share information with one of your girlfriends or boyfriends who was not a part of the program on the information that you received as a result of being a part of this?
Well, yes, one of my friends, she was having like guy problems. She was telling me that her boyfriend was cheating on her and that he was causing her emotional pain and she didn't know what to do. So basically, I just discussed with her that she has to love herself first, and if the guy don't love her back, then she has to leave. It all depends on what you feel in your heart. And if a guy's not treating you right and he's lying to you, I would just leave that situation alone. And thank God she left that situation alone and moved on.
What about you, Jamila?
Mine would be for one of my friends. It's a boy. He was known to be a ladies' man, and of course, around the school, the other boys congratulated him. And in best friends, they don't do that. They look at you like, "Are you serious?" Because putting your body out like that and setting your mind and focuses on other females and many females doesn't get you anywhere. And especially with your grades, your focus is not on your grades. Your attention all on the girls that are around you. So speaking to him, he's one of my close friends. But the thing is, when I spoke to him, I said, do you respect yourself? And that's definitely the major thing in best friends. And he's like, yeah, of course, And I'm like, so what makes you feel that you have a need to want to be with every girl that comes around? Because they keep coming to me. They're always coming to me trying to get my number. I'm like, okay, so do you have to respond to all of them? Do you have one female that you feel that is respectful and is mindful of your feelings? And he said, yes, there is one. I said, who? He's like, you. I was like, oh. But long story short is, I said, well, hopefully, I'm glad that I'm an example to you, but I said the Best Friends Foundation, especially with the Men's Foundation, they teach you that self-respect is key to your education and to yourself striving in the future. And he's like, that's deep. And I was like, okay. So hopefully that works for him. I hope that works.
I have one last question for you. We do have a financial component to the healthy relationship. Do you find that the information you received in the financial component was beneficial and will assist you with how you're going to handle your money when you get to college? Brianna?
Well, yes, because recently I just had an internship, and during the curriculum, I learned that I have to save my money, less shopping, because I'm a shopaholic. And that it told me that budgeting and saving is the best way because you have to prioritize your things from, do you want to buy your books or do you want to save for a car? Which one's more important? To me, I said saving the car, but my mother said the books are the most important, and best friends. So I just learned how to spend less and save more.
For me, it's the budget. I'm not a shopaholic of clothes. I'm a shopaholic of food. I'm a dancer and I love food. But yes, that same thing was taught to me, of course. It's where your money goes is where it's important. And my internship at Housing and Urban Development this summer has, we actually had a curriculum similar to the Best Friends, where finances, it's around 85% of your money goes to either transportation, food, and housing. Well, I don't have any house to worry about, and since I'm going to college, that fulfills my 85%. So where does the extra percentage go to? So of course you want to save up, and that's to be taught to, I think, everybody, no matter how old you are, is that 10% or 15%, how much will you save for yourself? And for me, that's going to invest in my future, in a savings. So when I do come out of college, I won't be a broke college student. I will have money left over, and I will be able to do something with it, something hopefully, of course, very positive, something that I believe that I've earned over the past 4 years in the next few years. So.
Thank you. And the last thing before I hand this over to Mr. Reese is, please share one thing that you would like for this audience to take back to their high school students that you've learned as a result of healthy relationship.
Well, with Best Friends, I would suggest that you give this advice to those that are high school students. You're never too young to plan, and meaning that you're never too young to invest in yourself. And it's not just financially, it's also spiritually or emotionally and mentally. So, and I also advise that you be a mentor to those that are your students, that are your mentees, because not just the Best Friends faculty is not just a faculty that sits in a boardroom all day. They talk to us. They have our cell phone numbers. They're there for us when we need them. So I just advise you and your students to always have a connection and converse so that you can know what's going on with them, and they feel that they're secure because they have someone looking out for them.
Just to add on what Jamila said, that's right. We all need mentors in high school, because I know I needed one. And I have one. Her name is Miss Robin Williams. We always talk. It's good to have somebody there, because you can't always talk to your parents, but you can always talk to your teachers and mentors. It's much better because they're not like, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's more, you feel more relaxed and more like they understand what you're going through. So just to take back is just to help out the kids that you teach and everything, because we really need somebody that influence us than our parents.
Thank you so much, Brianna and Jamila. We want the highlight to be on the participants, and that's part of the reason why the grantees are sitting here and I'm standing here. The next grantee will introduce her participant. Her name is Holly Hastings from Peace. She's the director of project team. Holly?
Good morning, everyone. First, I just want to excuse my back for just a minute while I talk to everyone out here in the front. I just want to start by saying the kid in me wants to come out. I am so proud to be standing here with Brianna. I just want to do a little dance, but I'm going to not do that for you. Project team was awarded to Peace Incorporated. Peace Incorporated has been a community action agency for over 40 years in Onondaga County in Syracuse, New York. And some of you may know about Syracuse, New York, because we are known for our amount of snowfall that we have. It seems like, I think we had our last snowstorm last week, but more is in the forecast for next week. But we're also known for basketball, and I hope we're known for project team at Peace Incorporated. Peace Incorporated's mission is to help people in the community to become self-sufficient. And I believe project team fits beautifully under that mission, because in our classes we have allow activities 1 and 4. So under 4, we offer premarital education classes. And our mission in our classes is to empower single adults and premarital couples with tools and knowledge which will help them to build healthy relationships now and to build and sustain healthy marriages in the future. So I'm going to turn it over to Brianna because I really want you to hear from her. I know you're going to have a lot of fun listening to her, but she has a lot to share with us. So Brianna, I'm going to start with you and ask if you would just let us know a little bit about you.
Hi, my name is Brianna Kuhneman. I'm from Syracuse, New York, and I also work at Peace in a center called Project Connection. It is a children's recreation and tutoring center, and we specialize working with children that have emotional learning and developmental disabilities. I'm also considered a family support specialist, and we work with families helping them to become self-sufficient and finding and advocating for their needs in the community. I'm also a mother of an 18-year-old and recently, 3 years ago, divorced.
Would you please share with us why you wanted to take the healthy relationship classes?
I chose to take the classes, for one, I realized I was repeating a cycle in my life and relationships that I wasn't aware of until after my divorce. And I was also referring people to the class. And I wanted to know about it so I could talk better about it and to understand what I was actually expressing to people. So I went in as a cynic to see if this could really work, because I didn't think, how could you change your relationships and how you are in them in such a short period of time?
What would you say are the 2 to 3 most important concepts which are taught in our classes, which have benefited you and your goal to have healthy relationships now and a healthy marriage in the future?
In our classes, there were a lot of communication styles that were taught and about value systems and different structures of a relationship. And I found for me, what really helped me was learning about the communication aspects and to understand yourself and the values that you carry. And there were certain, this one part of the class where you learn different communication techniques like I statements and focusing on yourself and your needs really stood out for me. And also, the facilitators themselves were a really big help for me because watching them work together, they were also a couple that are married, and they were showing by example during the classes how to relate in certain situations, and I found that very helpful.
Would you share with the group something that you shared with me last night about I statements and
I just recently graduated. I'm a master's student of social work, and I knew about I statements for many, many years, took classes on them, thought I was doing it right. And for example, in our class, we were taught there's 4 steps to I statements, and I realized in the last few years that I was only doing step 1 and using it for my benefit to turn it back around and blame the other person and say, I feel you are being really stupid. So when I was doing the I statements all the way through for my homework, I really struggled with it and found out where I was stopping and having a hard time continuing following through with it.
And would you mind sharing with us whether you went into the classes completely thinking that you were going to get a lot out of them?
Well, I went in as a cynic. I didn't think I was going to get anything more out of the class because of my background, and I was very wrong. I got a lot out of the class.
Would you share with us whether you feel these healthy relationship classes need to continue after grant funding has ended, and how might they benefit others?
I very much truly believe in the class, and I think it should be a never-ending class taught in our community for forever. I don't think we ever really learn techniques and that there's a process in being in a relationship elsewhere. And that's what I really discovered, that there is a true technique and process when you're communicating in a relationship. And I strongly believe in having that taught.
In closing, well, let me ask you one other question. In our classes, we talk about the difference between hearing versus listening. And so today, what is it that you want all the grantees in the room to really listen to and what you have had to say, rather than just hearing something, but really having listened to what you've said? Is there something that you want them to take away?
Yes, for me, having this opportunity to share my experience really helps and confirms for me the belief of how taking this class has helped me to participate and actually be in a healthy relationship. And during the process, I actually went from being in an unhealthy relationship, ending it, and starting a new one. So it was very confirmational.
In closing, Brianna, would you share with us a little bit about what this opportunity to present today has meant to you?
It helps in me believing in the process and actually being able to share and express to everyone that it does work and people should know about it and talk about it and refer people to it.
Thank you very much, Brianna.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Brianna. Due to inevitable circumstances, Jawar Johnson was running a little late, but I'm going to have him to introduce himself to say how long he's been with the program. Jawar?
Good morning. My name is Jawar Johnson. Sorry for being late. Metro had a few kinks in the system. I attended Benjamin Banneker Academic High School, and I'll be attending Lincoln University in the fall. I've been in the Best Friends program since I was in the 6th grade, and it was a very valuable and inspirational program that helped me get through a lot of things in my life. Thank you.
Jawar, can you maybe mention to the group 2 or 3 things you learned during your time with the Best Friends program?
Sure. While in the Best Friends program, I learned that as a leader, you must learn to take criticism in a, what's the word I want to use? In a good fashion, basically being able to take bad or good criticism to be a good leader. Also that you can't always do things on your own. You always need someone behind you to help you out. And also to manage money and, you know, more or less to get an education.
Thank you very much. The next grantee, Kay Pasley, is Professor and Chair of Department of Family and Child Sciences at Florida State University.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here and delighted to introduce Natalie Sanders to you. I'm going to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about the project that we have going on, and then it will be my pleasure to tell you a little bit more about Natalie, we consider her a star. We were fortunate enough to have an existing class at the university at the time that these opportunities for funding came out, and we took that course, which is a course that is part of what we call the all-university requirements in social sciences. So anybody from the university can take the class, much like an intro to psych class or an intro to sociology class. And we adapted that. We adapted that course to include both what we called an informational giving or a content lecture course, as well as a much smaller series of sessions that were attached to the lectures, which we call them breakout sessions or discussion sessions, where the students met in much smaller groups of 30 students with a marriage educator or a relationship educator. And as you know, many undergraduate students are not yet in relationships, and so the goal of the program really is to help them learn to make very good decisions whether they're in relationships or not, and to develop the skills that will help them in all of their close relationships, which we target those to be intimate relationships. But we also make sure that the student understands that those skills are related to developing and maintaining their relationships with families, with friends, with coworkers. Natalie was in the class in the fall, the 15-week semester-long class. We put through about 1,200 students a semester in this class, and then we have a class that is not what we call our treatment group. So Natalie was in a session in the fall with Dr. Michelle Lee as the lecturer, and then Mr. Dan Pullman as part of the what we call the breakout session. And most of our breakout leaders are our marriage educators, and we have one with us this morning. Amber, would you stand up? This is Amber Venom. Our doctoral students in our marriage and family therapy program. And so they come to us with a depth of skill and understanding in group processing that we don't find in our other doctoral students. So they are really well trained before they join us, and then they learn the curriculum and deliver the curriculum. But Natalie came to us in the fall of 2007. She is a major in our department in Family and Child Sciences. She is the first in her family to ever go to complete high school. She is the first in her family to ever graduate college as of Saturday. She is the only girl, last born of 9 children, and her parents came from Puerto Rico and Panama. She also has the joy of being recently married, so she can tell us a little bit today about how the class has impacted both her other relationships as well as her new marriage. Okay. Natalie, let's begin by having you talk about, think back to fall of 2007, or to fall of 2008, I'm sorry. What was it about the class that stood out for you as important when you were actually enrolled in the class?
When I was starting the class, I was planning my wedding. I was also finding a home. We were in that process. And also, I had just been promoted at my job. I work in off-campus student housing, and I'm a property manager. At the moment, I had been managing a property of about 116 students. And from Friday to Monday, I had 883 students that I had to manage. In the class, we had focused on relationship skills as well as communication techniques that I was able to apply not only in my relationship with my husband and with my parents and with my friends, but I was also able to take everything that I learned to my job, which was more than fabulous because going to work full-time, being a student full-time, trying to figure out how to be a wife full-time, I was overloaded. And all the techniques that I was able to apply it took my stress level down greatly. And it taught me a lot about myself. It taught me that I had to work on my skills as far as at work and at home.
Now you're away from this. You've been out of the class for 9 months. What lingers for you about that class?
As far as the techniques that I've learned, something that I've been able to use every single day is the speaker-listener technique. And like I said before, I use it at home and at work. Basically, I definitely thought I was a fabulous listener. I knew I could talk, but I thought I was a great listener. So whenever I'd have an issue with someone, I would listen, and I knew to give the head nod, and I knew to say, mm-hmm, right, okay. But the entire time that I'm doing this and I'm convincing the other person that, yes, I am listening to you, in my head, I was thinking of what I'm going to say next. In my head, I was thinking of that attack. And, I was always going to make sure that I had the last word. So as far as the speaker-listener technique, it was actually kind of fun. In class, it was real simple. They gave us a little yellow notepad. The notepad said, speaker-listener, and it had everything you need to do on it. And basically, whoever had the little card was the speaker. We had to respect the card. And until you had the card, you had to listen. Just listen. So it actually took me a while to learn how to listen. It actually took me a while to be able to really get to the meaning of what the person's trying to say, figure out their message to me, as opposed to, taking it personally and just wanting everyone to see things my way. And that's definitely something that I use at work all the time, with my husband all the time. Every Friday I'd go home and I'd say, okay, Nathan, I learned this today. Let's sit down with me for at least 30 minutes. I gotta figure this out. I gotta figure out where I'm going wrong. And I gotta go back to class next week. And we would do little activities in class, and our TA would give us a situation. And we would act it out. And it was fun, and it seemed simple in class, but when I took it home, it was just so much harder than it really was in class. And it was just, there were times that we actually had the notepad in front of us, and he was holding it, and I just snatched it out of his hand, and I said, okay, I'm ready to speak. And, you can't do that. Definitely can't do that. That was not a good idea. And so I guess I figured, now I don't even know where the notepad is, to be honest. It's just so natural to us. We actually figured out, okay, this is my issue. I'd like to start talking about it. You got a second? Do you want to listen? Yes, go. So it works for me, at least now.
You mentioned that there were a series of other activities that you did in class. Can you recall what some of those might have been?
Oh, yes, definitely. We also learned about timeouts. And whenever, of course, you're in this heated argument, it's always good to take a step back, breathe, take a timeout. At first, a year ago, I was like, okay, this is great. Timeout, I'm ready. Timeout, I'm going to go get some water. I'm going to come back, be hydrated, and I'm going to be ready to attack again. So that's what I thought at first the timeouts were. Then I realized, okay, no, I'm doing something wrong. So I figured, all right, I'm going to time out, and I'm going to, remove myself from the situation, remove myself even from, the room. Because sometimes just being in that room where you got into that heated argument with, that'll just, keep your emotions going. So I figured, let me remove myself from there, and let me have my time out, and, do whatever I have to do to calm down, and then to come back to the situation with a level head and be able to discuss calmly. Then I realized, okay, I was able to remove myself, I was able to calm down, but while I was removing myself, I was just sitting thinking to myself, okay, well, he said this, this, and this. I'm gonna say this, this, and this. So I would use that as a plan. I would use that as my time to, come up with other things to attack him with. And eventually, recently, I realized I was so wrong. And I kind of tweaked my timeout, and I realized, your timeout is for you to calm down, is for you to, especially health-wise. I mean, your stress level and your tension, you're not going to be able to sleep at night if you have this on your mind. You're not going to be able to focus at work or at school or with, your family if you don't use this time out to your benefit and really just take a step back, look at the situation, gather yourself, and approach the situation once you're ready in a completely, different way and ready to help the situation as far as, you two as a team, as opposed to what I was doing as trying to help the situation for myself as an individual.
Last night I heard you talk a little bit about how different you thought the experience was for you because you were in a relationship and planning a marriage compared to some of your peers who were not in relationships or in different stages in their relationship. Would you just comment on that briefly?
When I was taking the class, as far as in my breakout session, there was 30 students. And of course, on the first day of class, everyone has to introduce themselves and say where they're from and what major they are in, and also their age. So they're going down the row, and there's this girl that she's 19, and there's this other girl that she just turned 20, and they get to me, and I said, okay, well, I just turned 26, and the entire class just, and I said, and I'm about to get married in a few months, and that was another gasp. So I guess the class came at the perfect point in my life. I was taking a huge transition, and I was able to, the class wasn't just a credit for me. It was just, I took everything to that class and I applied it in my life, and I kept it daily, and it was more than just a grade. This was something, that I'm going to teach my family, teach my kids, teach my friends. I mean, it was just, I didn't know what I was getting into. It was just, another 3 credits at the beginning. But then at the end, I realized it was so much more. And regardless if it was for credits or not, I would definitely take that class again. And I would definitely encourage anyone to go ahead and sign up for it before they graduate, and just see if they can fit it into their schedule, because it's just really worth it.
That leads perfectly into my next question, which is about what would you tell a freshman? First semester in college, they're making that transition, which is very different than your transition, which was out of college. What would you tell them about the class if they were trying to make that decision?
I would definitely tell them, of course, to take it. Take it, whether it's not, in their first years of school or towards the end, just take it whenever they can fit it into their schedule, and just let them know to pay attention and to definitely participate. Because it took me, I want to say, about 2 or 3 breakout sessions to actually, go in and say, okay, I'm ready. I want to try the speaker-listener technique. I'm ready. I want to stand up in front of the class and, be silly and take this pretend situation, and, I want to attempt to try out all of these different techniques and make them work. So I would definitely tell them just to participate and not to be embarrassed and not to feel shy and don't feel like you're silly, because once you figure out these techniques in class, eventually they're just going to be so natural that you can't help but to use them. And you can't help but, at first you're going to think about it, but eventually it's just going to click. And it's just going to be as simple as, just anything, I guess.
One last question here. As you know, the enrollment in the class is predominantly women. Okay? So we have many more women in the class than we have men. What would you say uniquely to young men to help them see the class as attractive?
I would let them know that there's nothing but girls in the class. And also, I would just let them know how important the class is going to be for them in the future, to help them develop into, responsible, respectable young gentlemen. And also, it's going to help you get into the mind of your partner. It's going to let you see things from her point of view. Because, as or at least as they taught us, women have 132 things going on in their mind at once. They're thinking about this, and then they're doing this, and they're saying this, and, guys are just focusing on one thing. And while we're already on like the third or fourth or fifth topic, he's still on the first, trying to figure out where did we jump to, what did he miss? So, by taking the class, they're going to get some insight. By taking the class, they're going to be able to realize how to speak to people, and they're going to actually gain a whole lot of confidence because they're going to be able to approach situations and handle things in a completely different way as from before. And they're not going to be as scared to handle situations and to speak with the opposite sex as they were before.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. You actually have 3 upcoming freshmen actually attending Trinity, Lincoln, and Temple in the fall. So hopefully there's a healthy relationships class there that you all can actually attend. Okay, our next presenter today, actually our very last one, and we're going to open it up if time permitted for Q&As at the end to give you all an opportunity to ask questions. Pamela Morrell is the project manager for Remarriage Grant at Utah State University.
Yes, as Teresa said, my name is Pamela Morrell, and I'm from Utah State University, where I'm the project manager of a healthy marriage grant entitled Teaching Healthy Marriage Skills to Ethnically Diverse Low-Income Couples and Step-Families. Long title. We exclusively target step-families, and we do that for a reason. We find that, and certainly those of you who are part of a step-family know that there's unique challenges and stressors that are evident in step-families when you're blending families and bringing together people who aren't biologically related. And those are different than when you're in a first-time family. And so that's what our curriculum addresses, is a lot of those stressors to help these families have skills and expectations that are appropriate to what they're going into. One of the biggest stressors, and I'm sure you can imagine, is when you've got a parent in a parenting role that is parenting non-biological children, someone that he or she does not have a history with. And so that's one of the things that we teach in this curriculum, and I know you're going to hear Jody and Brandon talk a little bit about this. And the reason why is that those step relationships, have a huge impact on the couple relationship. If she can't stand his kids and he's not getting along with her daughter or whatever, that's going to impact how they feel about one another. So that's one of the things that we address in this curriculum, as well as conflict resolution and communication and those kinds of things. And you'll hear about that today as they speak. Just for your information, half of all marriages in the United States tend to have one or more partner that is in a remarriage situation. Also, we are having a huge trend of having people in first marriages who are bringing a child from a previous relationship. It's the first time they've been married, but they've had a child with a previous relationship. So in fact, they are forming a step-family with this first marriage. And then in Utah, a little bit more than a third of the couples, when they apply for a marriage license, we're finding, have been married before. So it's a huge population out there. And they're facing not only stresses of getting along with one another, but finding ways to do that when they're blending families. And so that's some of the things that we address in our curriculum. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jody and Brandon Garbanetti. They finished up our class a year ago. As a matter of fact, I think it's been just a year. They have been married 5 months. And then I'm going to let them introduce a little bit about themselves and tell us a little bit about their history. So Brandon, we'll start with you.
I'll let my wife go first.
Okay.
Thanks, honey. Okay, I'm Jody Garbanetti. I was married for 15 years to a man that I had started dating when I was 16 years old, so I was actually with him for 19 years. From our marriage, we had 5 children, 4 sons and a daughter. I was divorced 2 years ago, and I met Brandon online on a singles website. It was about 6 months after my divorce. Anyway, that's me.
Well, bear with me. I'm really, really nervous here. Not used to this, but I'm not from a divorced family, neither's my wife. But I grew up in a small town on a farm and was taught by my grandpa, my dad, what relationships should be. And so when I was married the first time, I was married for 8 years, and it was hard. You know, she did some things, stuff like that, but I've been divorced for 6, and after I got divorced, I never thought in a million years I was looking to get back into relationship because of what the hurt from the first one and what you go through. But I put myself out there and I met Jody and got introduced to this class from her advocate that she was going to. And here we are today, and I want to say thank you for having us.
I should mention that Jody and Brandon took our class premaritally. They weren't married at the time, and they finished the class, like I said, a year ago, and they've just been married 5 months. You did mention that. You've just been married 5 months. So Jody, what would you say was your biggest concern in getting remarried?
I wanted to make sure that I didn't go through the same thing again. I was learning to accept myself. And I knew for all those years that a woman shouldn't be treated the way that I was. So I wanted to make sure I didn't go through it again. And then another big concern for me was to find someone who would be a good example to my 4 sons, so that I didn't want to continue on to have another generation grow up to treat women and girls the way that I was. So that's what it was important to me.
Brandon, what was your biggest concern in marrying Jody, a woman who had 5 children? You didn't have any children of your own, but you were going to marry somebody with 5 children.
That was it right there. That was a huge concern of mine, huge. Because, like I said, I don't have any children of my own. That was never brought up in my previous marriage. But like they teach in the class, we didn't know this. We started dating before we took the class, and it was to develop a friendship with the kids, to be friends with them, which is true. But also, you're the adult. If it eventually goes on into the relationship further, they have to be able to respect you. You can't be a friend all the time. You have to be a parent. And so, from what my parents taught me, what my grandparents taught me, I try to instill that in my marriage now, because I would like our children, I consider them mine, I love them to death, I would do anything for them. I would like our children to enter society and be successful, like these guys down here at this end, going to college. That would make me very proud to see that happen.
Each of you, can you tell us one thing that you learned from taking this class that helped you realize that you could have a healthy and happy marriage relationship?
For me, we learned about the listening technique and everything, but I think we already had that pretty well established. I think we had a good enough relationship with that. So our next focus was on making sure that we have a strong foundation, that we have stability in our relationship, and that when kids see that, they know that they can't pull one of us one way and the other another way and get away with more with one and not the other. So that was a good learning tool for us, was to just learn how to remain stable and strong with each other.
You have to support each other very much. You have to learn to communicate, and that's what I tried to bring from my previous marriage, which I wasn't very good at. So when we entered this marriage, I wanted to make sure that we were able to listen to each other, not talk at each other, talk to each other. And it's tough in the world nowadays. You're busy. I mean, you've got everything pulling you every which way. You know, you've got soccer practice, you've got baseball, you've got theater classes, you know, this friend's got to come over, you know, and you've got everything. But if you're not able to talk and set boundaries and stay consistent for the kids, because we go from Disneyland one weekend back to normal life, and it's very difficult. We basically have to redo our relationship every other weekend and stay consistent on that. And if we stay consistent on that, the kids will know they have somebody to count on as they, you know, move through life and stuff like that.
Thank you. How did attending the step family class ultimately influence your couple relationship? Can you give us a story, an example, something you maybe got from the class?
Better communication, definitely.
Yeah. When we were taking the class, it seemed like every time that the class was over, we would go back to one of our houses and we could stay up talking for quite a while. Both of us had to be up early for work, but we were staying up and discussing things from the class. And one of the main things that was very exciting for us was they asked us to choose 5 things that were very important to us to choosing battles, and 5 things that we wanted to stress with the kids that were important to us, that we wanted to make sure they understood. And so we discussed, like for me, there's a lot of manipulation and things that go on with the kids and their dad. And so one thing that's important to me is I cannot stand lying and I cannot stand secrets. And so the kids come home and they've been told, don't tell your mom. And so that was one of the things that I put on my list, was that I want the kids to understand that there is to be no lying and no secrets in this home. And for him, it was respect. And
Exactly. So respect is a huge thing to me. Just seeing how my dad treated my mom, my grandpa treated my grandma, and to hear how she was treated and how the kids were seeing how she was treated by her ex-husband, that I have a very short fuse on that. And so I try to instill in the kids that respect is very huge. And mom is not here to serve us. She is not here to wait on us hand and foot. To make a household run, everybody has a little job they need to participate in and do. That also shows them responsibility. And then we took it a little step further with some tools from the program, rewarding them for helping out. Now, our 3 oldest boys, which, you know how coming into teenage years are, how much are you going to pay me? How much is it, you know? So, you know, we're set on a pretty fixed income. You know, with everything nowadays, we live paycheck to paycheck, which I'm sure a lot of people do. So we don't pay huge allowances, but if you help mom out, get chores done, pick up after dinner, you know, stuff like that, we do offer them a little bit to help them out. The 2 youngest, you can offer them 50 cents and they will be happy, which is no problem. But that's really helped us out learning how to pick our battles, because you can't fight every battle. It'll pull you apart in a family if you're fighting every single little battle. But that was my biggest, is teaching them to respect. I feel if they have respect, they will go a long ways. You will get respect in return, and especially respecting their mom for everything she does for them. That's how I
So
feel.
we stayed up, I think, later that night, probably till 11:30 or 12 before he went home, and we were just so excited about everything, and we made up this list, and the kids were on their summer visit with their dad while we were taking this class, so it gave us more time to discuss things and focus on things. So I hung this on our kitchen cabinet, and we sat down with the kids and we told them, okay, this is important to us, and not only the rewards, that we also had to lay out the consequences. So if you break rule number 1, this is the consequence for that. And so we got a lot of really good ideas that
Yeah.
night from that class.
And then one more thing to add on that battle thing we come up with is, we have some very, very smart children, and we've seen it in school. We've seen them excel. I mean, like our middle kid has a little bit of ADD, and he's drumming everywhere, and but he does really well. But we put a boundary in there that we are not going to tolerate Fs, because they have so much time, because there's so many video games nowadays that they want. That's where they'll spend their time if you let them. They'll just video game. So we made up a contract, and we made them sign that. If they get an F, they have to participate in community service. And that has helped so far. We're getting ready to start the new school year, but we started that in the middle of last school year, and it helped. And some privileges they lose, because they're
We know how important the internet is.
the internet and a cell phone is, and stuff like that. So if that is being taken away,
they work harder to make sure they get it back.
They do. Some incentive goes a long way with the older they get. So
Great. Now, I know we've been talking a little about the things you learned and how you're working with your children, and how has that, coming up with these plans and these ideas together, how has that affected your couple relationship? Jody?
I consider Brandon my best friend, and I love to go everywhere with him. And so I think that if the kids see that they know they can't play me against him, because they know how important he is to me.
kids are smart. They'll figure it out. They will figure out how to tug you away from each other, and they work on that. But if Jody and I can stay stable, and they can count on us being consistent throughout, they will learn that. And the Disneyland at the other end will eventually go away, because you can't buy their love all the time. You can't just keep throwing money at it. Pretty soon they'll just be going to him. I'm never going to take that away from them, because he's their dad. I can't ever replace that. But eventually they will just be using him, basically. And as long as we stay consistent and create a foundation for them to enter into the real world, because the real world is very harsh. It is very mean if you're not prepared for it. And it's working. The relationship that I've got with our 7-year-old Zyler is something I'd never expected. Jody one day gave him 2 quarters and went to them little gumball machines, and they had them little tiny copper rings that make your fingers turn green. He come to me and he gave me one, and he's all, will you wear this with me? I don't have it with me, because he's at his dad's, so we put him in a safe place. And he wears one when he's with me, and I wear the one he gave to me as well, and he calls them our bro rings. But he follows me around everywhere when I come home from work, and that is huge to me. That is, it means a lot. And like Jody said, she is my best friend too. I have seen so many things and done so many things with this second chance that we've had to be happy. It's amazing. It's cool.
Brandon and Jody, what advice would you give others before they enter into a relationship then, whether they're getting married for the first time or a remarriage like yourself? What would you say to them in obtaining some type of educational program or being involved in something like that? What would your advice be?
Well, I've told a lot of people that I know who have been divorced, even if it's not as a couple, even if you're a single parent with the kids. There's so many great ideas. And it helped me to see things that the kids go through when they go for their every other week visit, because since Brandon doesn't have kids, I don't have that constant interruption of kids coming to our house and then kids leaving and the things that the kids go through. And so the class was so helpful to me to see and understand when the kids come home and they're a little frustrated over the 2 stepbrothers they have at their dad's house. And it helps me to understand, okay, this is what's happening with them. And so I've told a lot of people that it's a great class, whether you're married, you're getting married, single, whatever, it's a great class and has so many fantastic ideas. And even if you just go to the class not expecting to learn something, you always do. And it's kind of, we already had a good relationship before we took the class, but I like to say it's kind of the icing on the cake, the ideas that we gained from this, and we can either take one of those slices that we learned and we can apply it in our relationship, or we can push a couple of them out of the way because we have other ideas. So that's...
Brandon, did you have anything to add then on that advice to having other people attend an educational
I would
experience?
say if the class is available for you, take it with an open mind. You don't have to go in there and take everything from the class because there's so much to apply to a relationship. But if you can go in with an open mind and take some of it, and if these classes help 1/3 of the couples that are remarrying, it's worth it. Because it makes for a better community, a better society, I feel. And if it draws you closer together, because watching these couples, as we went through the class, you see these couples come in there, and you see how much chaos is involved in a blended family. And you can just imagine what goes on at the house because it's just chaotic.
Because the class was the six weeks, some of the families had all of the kids together, the stepkids and the natural kids, in 1 week, and then the next week, it was just like, wow, to see what all of these little kids have to go through in going from one house to the other. It was a real eye-opener.
I would definitely recommend it, and hopefully the program continues going because it is a huge help. Gives you tools to provide a stable relationship. And like I said, if you don't take it all from the class, if you use 1/3 of it, like my wife said, it's definitely worth it. It helps. It helps the kids.
Thanks. Just in ending, I really want to thank Jody and Brandon for coming back there. We hope they've had some fun here in D.C. I want to make one comment. One of our big goals, and certainly they're a successful couple for us, is that we want these families to know they can survive and they can thrive in a marriage, and that this can be successful. And just because you've had a bad experience or had a marriage relationship or a relationship that went bad, that doesn't have to happen again. And you can build skills and have a wonderful relationship, and that's what's happening here. Thank you. Thank you, Jody and Brandon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brianna, Jamila, Jawar, Brianna, it's 2 Briannas, Brianna Wilson, Brianna Cunneman, Natalie, Brandon, and Jody. Thank you all for being here. And a special thanks to the grantees, Holly, Kay, Pamela, and Pauline. Thank you very much. We want to now open it up for questions and answers. If you have any questions, if you can come to the middle of the room with the mic. The mic will be here. Come to the middle and ask any questions you may have.
I had a question maybe for the instructor, the Best Friends Foundation. I didn't catch were you using a specific curriculum or do you have your own? So does it run as whole semester? A full year. Okay, good. Thank you.
And the same question for the college curriculum. The same question is for the college curriculum. What curriculum was that?
They also developed a curriculum that was special, with a special attention to for use with TANF mothers called Within My Reach. We've been working with Prep Inc. to we've redesigned that program for a college curriculum because what suits TANF mothers, single moms, often who, it has a lot on violence and issues of safety in the relationship. We've taken that and had to alter that, adapt it pretty dramatically for use in the college curriculum. We now are in we've just completed our third year with the manual. We're now working with Prep to determine what we're going to do with the materials that include all kinds of videos and worksheets and handouts and PowerPoints and that.
So when you say you're in conversation with them to determine what you're going to do with curriculum, is there a possibility that this is a curriculum that's going to be available to others?
It will be, yes. We're just trying to work out, I don't know how many of you understand universities, but there's an issue called technology transfer and who owns what. And so we're trying to, at this point, negotiate that with the university and with Prep. But Prep is absolutely committed and invested in what we're doing. Mm-hmm.
Hello, I have a question for Pamela. How do you do your recruitment for your step-family classes?
Well, certainly the way that a lot of people do it, we advertise, we've used radio, we've used certainly flyers. A big thing for us is that we target step families, and so we let that be known. Recently I did a webinar and we talked about how there's a difference because we have a large Hispanic population that we also serve, and I won't get into that here because we do target them a little differently, but certainly we let people know that, and I think Jody and Brandon would agree that the reason they came to this class, they indicated to me, is they saw it was about step families and they knew they were going to be wanted to blend and to be married and have a step family, and so use of that word step family. And then we always advertise saying these are the specific things we'll be talking about: working with an ex-partner, parenting across households. You know, a lot of those real issues that really grab someone they know is going to be an issue for them, and that's kind of how we try to target. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And also, do you encourage the other parent and their family to take the class as well?
We would love the other parent. We think that would be wonderful, and as a matter of fact, we have had that happen. This last year, more than ever, we've had threesomes come, surprisingly, as I've sat in on some of these classes where, you know, a new couple and then her ex-husband or his ex-wife, surprisingly, hey, the more the merrier. We think it's wonderful because you're keeping those children as the focus of doing something healthy for them. That doesn't happen all the time. Certainly a lot of our couples say, well, can our exes come? And we say, absolutely. We do have classes throughout the state of Utah, and if they fit in any of those areas, we encourage them to come. But certainly it ends up targeting on the specific couple like Jody and Brandon.
Pamela, this question's for you again, and thank you for the program. It's really quite interesting to see that. Specifically in Utah, I know when you said blended, I instantly thought of multi-ethnic because you mentioned that as well. So do you do that, and kind of what's that? Okay, good question. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. When we say ethnically diverse, we don't necessarily mean ethnically diverse between, the couples. We just have a large Hispanic population, so we have a large Hispanic group that will come in and also but they're generally married to one another. We have had that cross, though, absolutely. And then they get to choose whether they want to come to a Spanish-speaking class or an English-speaking class, depends on, how fluent each of the partners are in that language. So does that answer your question?
And specifically, maybe you don't. Maybe I was thinking of multi-ethnic couple where it's a... Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't actually. We do know that there are more stressors there, but generally most of our classes have been divided. It's either English speaking or Spanish speaking. So, sorry. I'll wait.
I wondered if Jawara could maybe give us some recommendations of how to reach other young men in high school. Like what kind of messages would be good for them to hear to want to come to the program you came to?
Sorry. I know for me that it was more or less that I knew I didn't want to do anything that would get me in trouble, so I found a program that I knew would keep me out of trouble. And as I stayed in the program, I more or less found out that it wasn't just there to keep me occupied, but it actually taught me things that helped me out through my lifetime. So I guess to answer your question, to get other people to join, I would say just try to reach out to young males that may need something to do or feel as though they don't have anything to do in their community. Best Friends would be a great program for them to join.
Thank you.
I have kind of a similar question. I'm Mary Schiavone, the Executive Director for Maine Teen Talk, and we work with the high school students up in Maine. And I was going to kind of ask the same question, and I'd like to extend it a little bit, maybe get a response from Jamila. You mentioned your friend who was a young man who said, well, that's kind of deep, to talk about these things. And maybe, Jawara, you could take it to the next step also. Maybe you could both respond to how we can really interest and motivate the young people who do feel, well, maybe it's too deep, or they're not sure how to go about opening their minds to talk about these things, to begin to dialogue and understand respect that dads want them to have later in life. I'm addressing the young guys in particularly.
Well, growing up, I had a lot of male friends. I don't know, I really wasn't a girly girl when I was younger, so I was always like basketball and football, so I've always heard like their stories and really wasn't interested in most of their stories, but I would like to say when reaching out, and it's for girls too, I think it's more so like how he said, I feel that men they're not provided a lot of programs like females are, and so they have a lot of time to just do nothing or do useless things because there's not a program that addresses them. And I'm not saying like useless, like, I do think it's useless. You're sitting around, and you're like probably, either spending your time on the court but not playing basketball. You're mainly looking at the girls in the bleachers who are looking at you, and then you're just walking around the mall, but you don't have any money in your pocket. So it's what are you doing that is relevant? So with programs like Best Friends or even high school programs that are in my high school, because there's a lot of rehearsal, so it keeps you busy and it keeps your mind focused on something. So for them, like he said, I was deep. It's not a matter of being deep. It's about, I feel it's common sense because I was raised that way through the program since 6th grade. So going into high school, it came naturally for me. But I feel that I've always thought that there's so many things like for girls. People are always looking at the girls. The girls, yeah, protect the girls, but the girls are going to eventually be in a relationship with guys. So how are we supposed to, So I feel that, like right here you have Mr. Carter from the Best Men Foundation right over here, Mr. Carter. and
Mr. Kevin.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Kevin, I'm sorry. He got his haircut. Yes, right here, Best Men, Mentors, and faculty. It's wonderful when the Best Men open because You have to address the boys. And it's easier, much easier for them to have a group session of just all boys because they can keep it real in an all-boys situation. Of course, when we have our girl and boy sessions, it can get a little hostile, but it's still good. You know, we get comfortable with each other. And it's not, best friends is not keeping the girls over here and keeping the boys over there. Everybody comes together, have conferences together, have Saturday meetings together, go on expeditions together. We're always interactive. So I feel that if you're gonna reach out to boys, make them know that this is real. Other boys are doing it. And if it's just starting, if it's a new program or anything like that, I would say like best friends, you didn't have to go looking for best friends. Best friends found you. They went to the schools, they reached out, they called people. Okay, so it's a great program. Like it's nothing more I really could say about it. So I think that's it.
One more question and that's it.
That's great.
One question, the last question.
Oh, okay. To follow up on what Jamila said, it's gonna be kind of hard. She just gave y'all a full speech. But anyway, what she's saying is like most definitely true. It is very few programs out there for males like myself. But honestly, to get males motivated, just tell them girls will be there. I mean, like, I know for me, joining Best Men wasn't really like, oh, I really want to join the program because I know much about it. Because honestly, I didn't. I was really just more or less looking for a way to get out of class, and I knew they had pizza, so I was like win-win situation. But when I got there, it was like, okay, well, I don't want to leave because I feel as though this is something I can carry on through my life, that I can teach my children to be respectful to not just yourself, but to women and to other people in society. To create more programs like this would be an amazing thing because there are many people out there, males specifically, that have nothing to do and want something to do. And it'll most definitely get them more or less motivated to do something better with their lives instead of just like standing around looking at each other like, oh, I think she's cute, or let me go talk to her, something stupid like that, you know. So says Jamila, you know.
I think it's a marketing thing too, advertising thing. Like with Best Friends, we don't only have sessions and discuss things. We have like step teams. So like, and also with Best Friends, it's not just in DC. It's nationally. So like when we have our youth summit programs, where like last year we came here, this hotel actually, and it was like a 3-day youth summit, and we had like discussions together, but then we also had like a type of talent show type of thing. The step teams from all over came together, the girl step teams.
I'm going to have to interrupt you for a minute. Sorry. I have further questions, but thank you very much. Sorry. It's time to go. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you. You all did a great job. Thank you.